been shaking, AC?
Not much. How the heck are you?
I'm excited because I don't know what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, I think it would be really cool. Well, first of all, for anybody who hasn't picked up on Clubhouse yet, you got to go and see our rant from, I guess, 2 weeks ago. But you're on fire on Clubhouse. I'm having fun with it too when I can get on there. But you nailed it when you were asked the other day, what is the DNA of a franchisor? And I thought it would be really cool if we ranted about this today. What is the DNA of a franchisor? Which I actually have created that, and I show people that when they're thinking of becoming a franchisor. And I'm not even going to tell you what's on it because I want to see what you think is the DNA. Well, you said it, and it was really good. So I hope no pressure, but try to remember exactly what you said.
Okay, yeah. So we were talking about what makes a good franchisor, and every person in the room had a different opinion, right? Like some people have got 3 things, 5 things, 10 things. Some people just have one, whatever it is. And when they asked me what my opinion is, I said exactly that. There could be lots of DNA components, but one thing I made sure to be clear to say was sometimes, but not always, a founder makes a good franchisor. Okay, let me repeat that. Sometimes, but not always, a founder makes a good franchisor. That means if you were a founder, okay, you can go sign a lease, you could create some systems and processes, you could maybe negotiate your first deal or your first sale, or, alter the way your company looks or whatever. But when it comes to dealing with franchisees, just because you did all of that doesn't mean you're good at that. If you can't be compassionate with the fact that they need you, you're not going to be a good franchisor. If you can't deal with them calling you at random times and asking you the same question over and over, you're not going to be a good franchisor. Nobody cares that you started this company that has no relevance to the fact as to whether you're going to be a good franchisor. You may be, but there's no there might be a correlation, but there's no causation there at all.
That's good. And it's true. And I actually see a lot of companies where, there's a founder who starts franchising and then they either need to get a partner to do that, to help them with that piece because they need help, or it just doesn't work out, So that's interesting. So you kind of hinted at a couple of the traits of a good franchisor. You said they have to be compassionate and be willing to help their franchisees.
Yeah, they need to be patient. You're going to get asked the same question over and over and over. And if you're the kind of person that's going to say, hey, I told you that already 5 times. Why don't you go look up another email? Then you're going to be the kind of person that's going to get like pies thrown at them because nobody wants to be spoken to that way.
Right. And I often say that you've got to have thick skin as a franchisor because the franchisees are going to be the judge and jury of everything you do, right? Yeah. It's like you're taking my money and so I should have a say in this. And so, yeah, they're going to take it.
I think like sort of as a guiding principle, if as a franchisor, you're looking at the big picture, what you're trying to achieve, then all of the immediate traits kind of fall into place. Patience is there, compassion is there, having a thick skin because the final goal that you're going to. If you're so focused on these small, little, fickle, minute things that happen on a day-to-day basis and how you need to react to each one of those, then you've lost the picture. And as a franchisor, you've got to be looking at the big picture.
What do you think about leadership?
I mean, I think a franchisor is almost like the epitome, the definition of what a leader is. Definitely not a manager. You can't be a manager because you're not going to have enough time for that with lots of franchisees. But you need these sound so obvious, but when you think about if they're non-existent, how things can go sideways, you realize that they're like critical.
And the funny thing is, when I see people become go from, a business owner to like franchising and becoming a franchisor and then navigating through that, even for example, today on the franchisor roundtable, conversation was about operations manuals. And I could almost just feel like some of the emerging franchisors, the early stage ones going, oh my gosh, I have to do all this. Like that's only one tiny piece of the puzzle. So why I kind of think of leadership is like, not only do you have to step up and be a good leader to people and, understand people, understand how to listen to them and how to help them and all that, but also like that leadership type that faces their fear and figures stuff out, like just says, I'll figure this out. I'm just going to have to do this. If and I owe it to my franchisees, to do it. And I hear so many franchisors, especially early on, say like, I have a really hard time sleeping at night when I don't know if I've helped them enough, or if they're not doing well, and I feel like it's on me for some reason.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, that's something that franchisor has to deal with. Like, I reluctantly say this, but if you're not worried about your franchisees and their money and their investment, you're probably a pretty shitty franchisor, know?
I think so. I mean, I would say that was one of the biggest things that, like, with my dad, like, and everything, it was like all about, are the franchisees being taken care of? And we're not talking about spoon feeding them everything, and but it's setting up the right relationships, and that piece really takes good natural leadership and good understanding of people, right? Like, Like I've had people come to us at AC Inc. and they want to franchise their business, and it's because they're tired of dealing with employees, or they're like they're tired of people. I'm like, do you think that having people that invest all this money is any easier than it is to deal with an employee? Like, I can sort of see why they might think that, but
yeah, if you have a poor performing franchisee and they're poorly performing because of you shouldn't be sleeping well. If they're poorly performing because of themselves, then you also probably shouldn't be sleeping well. You should be thinking of a way to solve that. I can't think of a scenario where I just be like, too bad, so sad, Well,
maybe if you brought in a franchisee that isn't a fit and you didn't know any better when you brought them in, and they just weren't performing, and they were kind of like not upset about it. They're just like okay with that, because especially in some of these businesses where the investment is lower, you get franchisees that they're like, they didn't invest a ton, so there's not a lot of skin in the game, so they don't work hard. And with those ones, I'm like, well, if you can't do anything about it, like, let's really focus on the people we can help. So maybe in that situation, right? Might be
if you don't have that skill set to focus on the people that you can help, you've got to be humble enough to welcome that. I find that a lot of founders, some founders at least, aren't open enough to it, right? They are the end all and be all. Some of them claim that they are open to it, but then when the advice comes, they listen to respond and not to understand or not to hear.
You know what? You just hit the nail on the head on something that I hadn't even thought of. I often say that the people that we attract to work with us are people that I can see the difference in one call with people, whether they have ego or not. I mean, we all have ego, I guess, but like, if they're overly confident or not open to help as a franchisor, that is a big red flag to me. So you have to be open to help. Otherwise, you're not. Just think about all the people that that are franchisors or your own when you first started. If you're not willing to get help, you're going to try to do things your own way. You're going to, like, next thing you know, you're treating your franchisees like employees. You don't know any better, and you think you're right. Like, that ego is a very dangerous thing in franchising. So I think you just brought up a really good point.
Cool. I'm happy.
Yeah. Woo! All right. What about with one more? I'm going to throw in. There's just a few more that we're not getting at, but that's okay. It's a rant. It's not a full paid session here. But transparency. I see this all the time where franchisors, either they overlook it or they actually aren't comfortable with being transparent. But the more you can be transparent with franchisees, the better franchisor you are, because they can have benchmarks. They can understand you better. They realize you're not just sitting in this shiny office with your feet up, eating bonbons all day and going traveling, to your corporate, I mean, not your corporate, you're like your second property and all these great, like, you're like, no, you're usually sleeping like 2 hours a night when you're a franchisor and just grinding.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a secret. People know in a good, successful franchise system, a franchisor is going to earn some money. That's why they got into it, right? Yeah. So,
but not early on. Right. Anyway, yeah. Well, there we go. Maybe we can chat more about this another time, but I think it's time to wind it up.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1. Go be
awesome.